I don't think anybody in my life, family or friends, prayed for me more than my mom did when I was going through not only prison, but all the years that I was out drinking and driving, partying, getting drunk.
And he is the reason I'm the Christian woman I am today, because of all my prayer life that has been built up.
She knew that my last Sunday in prison was Easter Sunday, and I got to preach, and I sang and everything else. And so for her to invite me here on Good Friday to share an Easter weekend, just coming up on a couple weeks before I actually celebrate my 12-year anniversary of being out. Very special to me, because I am the man of God today because of all the time she spent in prayer, just looking out for me, come to visit me every single weekend for almost the whole 3 years.
First time when he got out of prison, well, his youth pastor came up to me and he said, you know, I always knew J.Dan was called to preach, but he just took a little detour. So we're glad the detour's over and that he's on the right road, and he tries to keep us all on the right road now.
What's neat is even before I ever went to prison, my mom would go on to missions trips in prison to the female units, and she would go spend weekends with Mike Barber Ministries and go into and speak to death row. She'd speak to the Carla Faye Tucker. She was even sowing seeds into the prison ministry way before it was a prison ministry for her to come see me every weekend.
2008, God began to restore Floor Rescue. And actually my mother helped me out and put the website back up. And a guy I had went and gave him a bid. I had met him about 1.5 years earlier, and he said, I'll contact you when I'm ready. That was the first job I got when I started getting back up on my feet again. And that job really kind of catapulted me back.
So all of this, I mean, that whole site over there, plus all of this.
This is the last 10 years.
And you say, you're almost at $1 million
Yes.
years, but I mean, you got some big stuff on the horizon or stuff that might push you over the edge?
We've actually done a couple of big commercial jobs recently, and one of those being, the Galleria Tower 2, where we're doing some office floors for Amazon.
Amazon?
Yeah, that was a big job. Actually, that was our biggest job ever.
Somebody helped you in the beginning. I mean, what about you?
Several.
Have you had the opportunity maybe to give back or to hire somebody who was in a similar situation?
Yeah, absolutely. We've given men opportunities from both the Freeman House and Forgiven Felons.
He's a good boss. He's a good boss. He's a much better man, much better husband, much better father.
He's a good boss. He's a good leader, good Christian man. Keeps me in line a little bit.
The whole thing behind, Floor Rescue and me being able to pursue an opportunity in this field is that I hope to be able to give that to someone else.
Right.
That you can actually learn a skill in a trade, excel in it, and make a decent living, and then do something you enjoy doing. We get to create stuff with our hands. We get to create works of art. When I first started doing the work, I wasn't thinking about building a company. Through the way I grew up and just my struggle in life, and just, I always kind of looked down on myself. I didn't really look at myself in a right light. I didn't see myself in a healthy way. So, I never saw myself as running a company. I never saw myself as someone who would do that. But, God has another plan. So, here we are.
My emotions may tell me one thing. My situation may tell me one thing. But at the end of the day, I can't go for my emotions and my feelings. I have to know that he's good. Even in the midst of the fire.
Brian's love of preaching isn't the only way he serves in ministry. His keyboard always makes the trip to church as well.
God placed me here to revive the ministry again for us with the music and the worship, to fit along with the vision here that God has given this church. So I'm looking forward to that task. Everything that I do on this keyboard is going to be for the glory of God. Many people are going to be set free, healed, delivered, encouraged, inspired, all of the above. Be drawn closer to Christ. I used to do this, go to drugs or go to alcohol. I had to have a cigarette and all of this. Now I go worship. I go to my piano and I just give it to God and I worship. I meet him there and he meets me and he changes everything.
We're coming up on 6 years of doing this Transitional House ministry, and at one point we saw a need for some of the guys to have some food when they first get out. When they get out of prison, they get a $50 check. They get some clothes given to them that most homeless people would not even wear. And that's it. That's their pat on the back. You served your time. We did our job. Have a nice life. So we needed some way. We needed to find a way to be able to feed these guys when they first get out. And somebody told me about Harvesting International, which is where we're going. So this is where we come once a month. Get 750 pounds of food. Fresh produce, frozen meat, a lot of organic stuff.
We're a food bank and a food pantry. And what that means is that we not only help ministries, but we help families.
So ministries like ours buy from him, and we pay for the food, and that in turn allows them to feed more families.
Yeah.
And for former resident Bernie Orr, it's now his turn to give back to others in the community.
It's just like a lot of people are a blessing to me being here, so I was like, you know what, is it okay if I come back and pick up the food? And he was like, sure. So I got a key to the van, I got I come every second Tuesday, and we drive to Mansfield, and then drive back, pick up the food.
Why you came out here?
He doesn't have stipulations on me.
Right.
We would try to go to other food banks, and they would put stipulations on us about what we could or couldn't do
With the food.
with the food. And the blessing starts with him, and it just passes down to our guys, and then it goes out. Our guys bless the people they run into.
So what next? What happens now?
We'll go to Jadan's house and drop off food for people that are in need, and then we'll go from his house to drop off the food, and then we'll separate it, put the cold stuff with the cold stuff, and then put it down, and then the guys go through it, and then that's pretty much it.
So here we are at the Forgiven Felons house. This is where all of our ministry takes place, and the most important part of our ministry, I believe, is on Sunday mornings. We have breakfast and Bible study. And so what we just got through was eating, nourishing ourselves physically, but also feeding ourselves spiritually. And our Sunday morning format is based on the word plow, P-L-O-W. Our first Sunday of the month is prayer. Our second Sunday of the month is laugh, and that's what we did today. We just told jokes. We talked about what brings us laughter and joy in our lives. We talked about how important it is to intentionally interject laughter into our lives, into those crisis moments. And the Sunday morning Bible study, this is where the meat of our ministry takes place. And this is where all the guys that live in the house, no matter what we do during the week, we all come together on Sunday mornings and eat physically and eat spiritually and grow together. This is where the iron sharpens the iron. This is where we overcome. This is where we get healed. This is where we pray for one another. And it's one of my favorite times of the month for this ministry. I mean, of everything we do, this is one of my favorite times, one of the most special moments. And but this is the day, this is the hour that we take everything we learn and we utilize it throughout the rest of the week. It's what we do at Forgiven Felons. So every Sunday we take the van to Walmart for the guys. And so I told Mike, I said, listen, every Sunday when we go to Walmart, you or Fred or somebody stay in the van and let Carrie start driving around the Walmart parking lot.
To learn how to drive.
5 miles an hour with that big white van.
Yeah, so he's driving around the parking lot of Walmart, learning how to drive. And then eventually, I said, go take your written test. And so he took the written test, and now he can drive on the street with a 21-0. And so he started doing that. Go ahead.
And I started going about 15 minutes down the road to, maybe not even that far, to Walmart. Just city streets, nothing real fancy or whatever. And then I did that for about a month or two. Then Jadan said, okay, well, now you can start taking the guys to Watermark Church. In order to get to Watermark Church, I got to get on the highway. And I told him no. And before
he didn't say it with a smile on his face. No, I didn't. He looked at me and said, hey, I'm ready to step down from leadership. I'm not driving on the highway.
Actually, I told Mike that I wasn't going to do it, and Mike just kind of looked, and he knew that was above him, so he contacted Jadan, and I'd already came in the living room and let the other guys know that, hey, I'm probably not going to be house manager after tonight. That's right. That's what you said. I'm not going to do it. And they're like, what? I said, yeah. So me and Jadan went in the room, and he talked to me, and I'm like, no. I dug my heels. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. And he talked to me and talked to me and talked to me. One thing that finally got me is I had a shirt that said something about dealing with the power of God inside me is bigger than any obstacle ahead of me or whatever. And he said, I just have to put that shirt on.
Why did I have that shirt on?
Yeah, exactly. He told me, he said, so that shirt doesn't mean anything to you? And I looked down at it. I couldn't do anything. And he prayed with me. And it brought tears to my eyes because I was still terrified because I'd never driven. I realized the damage that vehicle could do if I ever lost control or just whatever. Yeah. So I was just terrified. But he pushed me to it, and I'm thankful for it.
And we've all survived.
Wait, what happened that night?
You gotta tell that story. You gotta tell that story. And that's the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, usually when guys get in that van, everybody's laughing and talking about what happened during the service.
Quiet.
So
it was quiet.
When I got up there, and I started the van up, all of a sudden I heard somebody said, hold on a second. 6 people in the van, you hear 6 seatbelts click. Nobody's wearing seatbelts.
Nobody usually wears them.
Nobody usually wears them. I was like, really?
Yeah.
I was like, really? It was crazy. Safety first. It was crazy.
Soon enough, Kerry went from a van he borrowed to a car he could call his own. Now Kerry uses his license to give others a lift when they need a helping hand.
We get to go help a forgiven felon
friend of Jay Dan's. We get to help him move.
Kerry is on his way to help Aaron, the first ever forgiven felon to contact J. Dan.
When we come about, I didn't even know Forgiven Felons, and it was through my family. Forgiven Felons helped my wife and the kids transition, and help while I was in prison. Done really good, and that's how I heard about him. And then when I got out, then I met J. Dan.
I reached out found J. Dan and Forgiven Felons on MySpace, and reached out to him and wanting to find if there was any kind of ministry that was out there to help us as we were going through the transition of our loved one being in prison.
And kind of went through some hard times, and it done really good, and it just helped us make the transition from prison and life, back to society, and having a relationship with God and a relationship with the community, and being a support to the community instead of what we were.
It's encouraging to other people when they look at our life and see what God has done for us. J. Dan and Jess and me were a tremendous amount of strength for us and shepherds for our family.
And for Kerry, some items he packs up reminds him of his time in prison.
These are two of the most important items in prison. This is our air conditioning, because they don't have air conditioning in prison. This is it. A $20 fan, it's like your life. And this is our grocery bag. Y'all know how you go to Walmart and have shopping carts? These are our grocery bags. I can't believe you had this stuff still in this garage, but
Jerry and Ricky Bryce both work at Ben's General Contracting. They took me to the office to meet their boss and good friend, Jim Benge.
Everyone's going to want to know, you're breaking the mold here. So are these guys, really, but I mean, convicted felons, and yet you hired them, and from what I understand, Jerry, almost right out of prison.
Right, that's true.
Explain how that happened.
Well, we met at church. We were sitting in a circle, in a circle of about 20 or 30 men. And I don't know Jerry. I've never seen him before in my life. And he walks over to me and puts his hand on my back and goes, I need to pray for this man. And everybody stopped.
I heard him in my spirit. And some said, you need to go approach him right now. Be bold. And I went up to him. I said, man, I need to pray for you. And we prayed right there. And Jim said, wow, man, you're the kind of man I want around me, man. He asked me, he said, where you staying at? Where you work at? But at the time, I was at Maggiano's and doing quite well. And I remember Jim gave me his card. He said, if you ever need to talk to anybody, if you ever need anything, you let me know. I said, Jim, I said, look, do you know anybody that need a hard worker? I said, he said, you ever did any construction? I said, I ain't done, but I can learn. He said, okay. He said, so how much you want to make? I ain't never had a boss man ask me.
How much do you want to make?
How much I want to make? I was tight-toned.
Yeah. We need to talk after this is over.
He said, how much
I'm
do you?
retired now.
I said, think big, Jerry, think big. I said, man, I always wanted to make at least $15 an hour. He went to doing math. He said, how about if I give you $36,000 a year? I said, what?
I've never had a boss that I can pray with, pray for, that I can call a friend. Most of my bosses, we talk about them behind their back, But I don't have nothing good to say about Jim. And I think I stand up to anybody that try to talk bad about me. A few times in my life that I knew I was exactly in God's will, where I was. And I feel that way when I'm here.
These guys what has showed me the strength of how to get your life back in order. They have brought more to me than I've given to them, that's for sure. I mean, these guys have brought me a relationship with Christ that I would not have.
I recruit drivers for a logistics company for the whole state of Texas, for all 5 terminals. So it's just amazing. So I have my own office and all of this. It blows me away.
How does God take somebody from prison into the corporate world?
It blows my mind.
Yeah.
God did it. It's like, this has been my dream job to recruit and to work with other people and to use all my skills. And God just gave it to me. In spite of my background, He gave me a position like that. Yeah, I want you to meet my wife, my beautiful queen. princess. She coming out now.
There
Hey,
she
love.
is.
How you doing?
How are you?
Mwah. Mm.
Come on into our castle.
All right.
Awesome.
How in the world did you seem like such a nice, beautiful young lady,
Thank you.
very articulate and intelligent, and you ended up with a felon. How does this happen?
It's like I understood Brian and he understood me without us having to say, okay, I need to get to know you. Brian acts nothing like he's been in prison. And that's what had me like, what matter of man is this? You just get out. And you don't act like that. You don't act closed in. You don't act like there's something blocking you. And that's why I told him, I said, your life is like Joseph, baby. You went through prison on purpose.
Wow.
Because the prison didn't make you. What I mean is it didn't change you.
Right.
It changed you for the better. It made you who you are today. And I told him
All part of God's plan,
Yeah.
His sovereignty.
Right.
And so I'm in love with that. I'm in love with God has made in him.
Without this place, I don't think that I'd be going in the direction I'm going. Forgiving Felons has just been an awesome experience. It's unlike any other.
He has surprised us quite a bit, and he's done wonderful. He got saved, which meant a lot to me. I knew when he did that, he meant it.
I've been here for 22 months. I've graduated Regen, which is a recovery program at Watermark that I highly suggest our new guys coming in.
I don't think there's been any bad part since he's gotten out. I think Shannon realizes that, you know, he'd gone to jail a couple times for 6 months, a year, you know, and I think this last time when the 5 years hit, I think he realized that he needed to do something with his life, and he's trying to do that, and I couldn't even do what he's doing.
Shannon was a little quiet. Most guys are when they first come in, and so it took a little bit of time.
Did
for
you
me to
do a
get to know him.
12-step program? After about 6 months in the program, I seen that I wanted to have a part in what the other guys were doing as far as house managers, and I was really looking to step up, and God was putting it on my heart to, you know, stick around here and do what I could to help out guys too.
And he began to acclimate right away. He really had a plan of action, and he's carried it out. And that's, you know, on the practical side. And then on the spiritual side, he began to, you know, consider some things that he wanted to do as far as growing.
I came to Mike, and he was mentoring somebody else at the time.
Started asking Mike to be my mentor next door, and just working with Mike and proving myself within the house, working with the guys and stuff. I worked myself up to leadership.
He really has come in and shown a lot of practical things that the guys needed as far as handling money. He's done a very good job, you know, befriending them, you know, and being able to relate to them as far as their prison experience goes.
He does what's necessary, and, you know, I mean, we both work. Well, I work, and she's disabled, so I try to help him out as much as I can, have him over here weekends and, you know, all that stuff, but he's really put his foot forward.
The most I get out of it is helping these guys, knowing that they got somebody right there next, you know, living in the same house that's fighting the same battles they are, going to church with them, going to recovery with them, just helping them every step of the way.
I'll tell you the main thing that I've gotten out of this is I wanted to, you know, he's my son. I think my relationship's always there, you know, as a son, but the most wonderful thing that's happened is that they have their relationship. So.
When you just look at numbers and percentages of prisoners, felons, that do time, the majority of them go right back where they came from. And, you know, there's programs and there's institutions and there's other houses of different types out there for felons that get out of prison. But they always end up going back more times than none. And boy, when you introduce somebody like J. Dan Gum, for example, who knew that he was called by God Almighty to head this ministry, and then to watch what happens when God's hand touches lives, first with J. Dan's and a calling, and then with other inmates that had come through the house or have come through the house and are continuing to go through the house. They're learning how to survive, how to stay out of the prison. And boy, I'll tell you what, the power of God it's an eye-opener for me once again, just to see how awesome God is. And I'll tell you, one of the things that it made me realize the most, and this was like from the very, very beginning when I first met all the guys at Forgiven Felons house, I realized, you know, I'm in a room with forgiven felons. But I'm also a forgiven felon. This has hit me most of all. The only difference is I didn't get caught. I didn't have to do time. They got caught and they did time. I'm a felon just like they're a felon. It's level ground around that cross. And I think the church as a whole, Christians, need to look at this in that way. We're all forgiven felons. That's what I believe. And that was a big eye-opener for me. And I thank God for these men and their testimonies and their lives and how they have been changed and transformed